We are back with another Playful Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and I'm really excited. We're going to talk about going from perfectionist to playfulness with Jordana Confino, and she's a coach and consultant, mostly in the legal profession. That was her background. We're going to talk about how type A perfectionists can get to a playful human mindset today. You can find her at JordanaConfino.com. You can find Playful Humans at playfulhumans.com. And you can rediscover the power of play. Take a playfulness quiz, maybe the burnout quiz. See if you're medium rare. Well done. How burnt out are you? Go to playfulhumans.com. Here we go. Bringing the moves on the YouTube version. If you're listening to this instead of watching it, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel at Playful Humans. We like to start with the joke of the week here on the podcast. The joke of the week this week is brought to you by my new jewelry line for professional bodybuilders. There, most of it is a necklace. For the necklace. Okay. Did you hear the official joke of the week is? Did you hear about the cheese factory that exploded?
No, tell me.
There was nothing left but debris. Okay, there we go.
You laugh. You got a good one there.
That was better than my sponsor this week. I blew the necklace, but we'll get there. Now, I want you to start with your story for everybody because I think you're good at telling it and you help people with this problem too. So tell us about your legal career and your serious profession and what happened with that.
Yeah, and I think that a great backdrop here is just sharing the title of my blog, which is basically the story of my life, which is Chronicles of a Recovering Type A+ Perfectionist. And that really is me and my story to a T. So starting at the very beginning, and then we're going to jump ahead. When I was a little kid, oh my God, I was the most amazing little creative spirit. I was a total weirdo in the most fabulous sense of that word and was so playful. And I wanted to be a movie star and work part-time at SeaWorld and all of the things.
Nice.
And then fast forward, by the time that I got to early high school, a lot had changed. And I was in no way connected to that person anymore. And I had just fully assumed the persona of the raging overachiever. And so valedictorian of my high school, top grades, Yale College, getting towards the end of my experience at Yale College, I was studying psychology and teacher prep because those were the things that interested me. And they just didn't feel prestigious enough. Junior year, when a lot of my friends were taking internships in finance and consulting, I knew that those things weren't for me, but I felt like I needed to do something more. And so I applied to law school because that felt shiny and prestigious at the time. I had been type A, meticulous, detail-oriented, all of the things. Everyone's always like, oh, you should go to law school. So I did. And I basically concocted this story for myself about what I wanted to do with my law degree because I didn't have an actual real reason, but I needed to put one on. And so I decided I wanted to be a federal criminal prosecutor, very prestigious route. And I just set guns blazing on how do I do all of the things that I need to do in order to make that possible. And I was very good at accomplishing things that I determined I needed to accomplish. Outside observer, graduating straight honors, Yale Law School, 2 prestigious federal clerkships, big law job offer, wildly successful, right? And on the inside, I felt like I was dying. So lonely, it physically hurt, did not enjoy anything I was doing, struggling with increasingly distracting, eventually debilitating anxiety, as well as a whole slew of chronic physical health issues that I would later find were dramatically exacerbated, if not entirely caused by the stress that I was under. And I remember in my jobs, like when this summer working at that big firm, just looking around and being like, so many people are miserable and no one seems to care. Like no one even thinks it's a problem. They just expect that this is how it is. And that just, I got to a point where I couldn't sit with that anymore. Like my mind and body were like, we're done. This is literally never going to end. And so I actually discovered positive psychology, which is what I now teach and coach on, Googling how to be happy, because I really wanted to know. And I ended up taking this course on positive psychology and it just blew up my brain. And I was like, oh my gosh, my whole experience and my whole belief system about what I needed to do in order to be capital S successful and ultimately happy is completely backwards. And if I had known this stuff, I would have done everything differently. It would have been so much better. But also, no one in the legal profession knows this, and someone needs to teach them. And so it was at that point that I decided to undergo training in positive psychology and devote my career to sharing this information with, at first it was just lawyers and law students, and now it's really broadened out into high achieving professionals and perfectionists more broadly. And so I'm doing that work through my coaching and my teaching. And then just to bring you to how I got to the perfectionism piece, I eventually realized that positive psychology shares all of this information about how we can be relating to the world around us and external things in order to maximize our well-being and why that's worthwhile. But so many people, if it's not those things that are holding them back, it's this relationship with themselves and the messages they're telling themselves in their own head that prevent them from actually embracing any of those things in a meaningful way. And so that is how I landed on the perfectionism piece, which I actually think is the biggest thing standing in the way of play and fun and joy and actually peak performance and success for so many people.
I love all of that. I second all of that. And we got so much to unpack there. So I'll start with where you ended, because I think that perfectionism is interesting. Here's a random question. Are you a firstborn?
No, I'm a secondborn.
Second. Okay. I feel like I'm a firstborn, and a lot of firstborns get that pressure of like, you know, the parents are like, we have to be perfect parents. So we have to have all these rules and you got to get good grades and it's all a reputation. And then by like, you know, if you're like a sixth or seventh born, they're like, the kids are treating themselves. All the rules have been broken. There's no time out anymore. Like it's all gone. And it's like, you find much more creative spirits, but I find a lot of firstborns become perfectionists because there's this high expectation and you have to go first and you got to set a good example for everybody. And you're kind of leading the way. And it, for me, adds a lot of pressure to that.
So it's interesting because for me, I mean, my parents definitely, they had very high expectations for both my sister and I. And for me, at first, it was looking to my sister and I had to be as good as her. So she was very smart, very capable. And so I had to measure up in my mind. But then what happened to me, and I can actually, with the help of an excellent therapist who helped me piece this together a few years ago, well after the fact, I can pinpoint it down to the exact year where my deep-seated perfectionism, overachieving took root. And it was actually, so my father got really sick my freshman year of high school, and it was really scary and things felt like they were spiraling out. And I think my way to try to make it all better, like how could I be the good girl? How could I make them happy? How could I, fix things when I had no control over this? They seemed really happy when I brought home perfect grades and shiny accomplishments. And so for me, it was like, oh, here's the thing that I can control and perfect. And I think that a lot of things fuel into it. So one is the expectations and everything, but then I think it's, our form of trying to get control in a completely uncontrollable world. And that was it for me. And it's actually funny. So from that point, like later in life, when my parents were like, why are you so hard on yourself? We're not that hard on you. And I'm like, well, you were initially, but then I took over and I was a more intense drill sergeant than you could ever be. And so then you're like, oh, okay, we can step back now and just tell her she's working too hard because we know she's got it.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of that too. And I'm interested about the kind of flip back here too, because I find that a lot of people struggle, and maybe when I say a lot of people, I'm like asking for a friend here, and we're talking about you and I.
Oh, yeah. Research is always me search.
But there's this balance of like wanting to perform and wanting to be successful too. So I think people think it's on or off, that you either are type A, perfectionist driven goal achiever, or you're a complete slacker, you're fooling off, you're going to end up in a van down by the river.
Completely.
But in my mind, when I got there, it was when I thought about optimization. And they're like, no, I need to live an optimal life, not a maximized, like perfect life. That's not even possible. But how can I optimize my energy? Like I can't just, run a marathon at a full sprint the whole time. Like this, I'm going to run out and I'm going to burn out. And I know we both have experiences with that too.
Yeah.
When I started thinking about optimization and how do I live the best life and maybe not the perfect on paper life, that kind of justified it in my mind, that I can still be goal driven. I can still be optimizing things. I can still be working on these, slightly crazy minutia, but I'm doing it in a way to optimize the result, not maximize it. Is a big difference.
Yes. And I'm so glad that you raised that, because so many important things. So one, that black and white, all or nothing thinking is one of the hallmarks of perfectionist thinking. So it's either 100% or zero. There's nothing in between, which ironically leads so many perfectionists to actually do zero in so many places, because they're like, oh, if I can't, do it to death, why do it at all? And what you're calling the optimizing, the maximizing, it's actually a construct that I've adopted to try to make people pay attention to this is, first of all, starting with what is perfectionism not? So when people hear, especially in the legal industry, when I'm like, okay, we want to de-glorify perfectionism, they're like, why would we want to do that? Because we need excellence. We need excellent work product. We need attention to detail. I'm like, you can keep all of that stuff. In fact, actually your perfectionist mindset is impeding your peak performance, because the difference between perfectionism and this other thing that we're talking about is not the standards that we set for ourselves. It's our expectations for how we reach them and how we relate to ourselves as we're pursuing them. So do we expect that I need the best outcome immediately on the first try with no room for error? Or do I recognize that, there can be detours and give and take along the way? And in fact, it's through these step backs and the stumbles and the mistakes that I'm actually going to learn and increase my abilities and my potential. Whereas if I just play it safe and do the things I know I can ace on the first shot, I'm never going to grow. Also, how do we relate to ourselves when we have those setbacks, or when we're just trying to motivate ourselves? Like, are we stoking ourselves with shame and blame, trying to beat ourselves into performance? Or do we know how to nourish ourselves with intrinsic motivation? And the concept that I use is not forgo perfectionism, let go of that, go so that you can achieve big picture perfection. And big picture perfection is exactly what you're talking about, right? The best possible outcome that's actually attainable given all of the circumstances. And you can think about it in terms of balancing, the best possible outcome involves being able to get sleep and play and connection that actually fuels my performance. But also, even if we're just thinking about let's say the first year associate who's got a bazillion different responsibilities and assignments coming in, perfectionists often, it goes hand in hand with people pleasing, right? So they're like, if I want to be perfect, I have to say yes to everything. And they think that everything needs to be done entirely, completely, 100% to death. But it's like, all right, so if you have 100 assignments, or let's say 5 assignments, let's simplify it, and they all need to be done today, and you spend 8 hours perfecting assignment 1, what's the quality overall of your work going to look like? And compare that to the quality if you say, all right, here's the time I have, here's the energy I have, looking at it realistically rather than aspirationally. And the problem is that perfectionists tend to say, I should be able to make the impossible possible if I'm just good enough and just work hard enough. It doesn't actually work that way. And then carve up your time accordingly, recognizing it may not be perfect, but the best possible outcome will come from that, and you're making that choice intentionally, as opposed to being like, I'm just going to blindly perfect this one thing and then, default to the rest of it being
Yeah. Again, I love all of this, and there's so many layers to it. What I heard you say is a couple of things that I like. One is you have to be at your best to do your best work. So if you don't think about your rest, your sleep, your play, your emotional energy and stuff, then you're not getting perfection, and you're at least not getting it in the most effective and efficient way possible. There's a difference. I think, we as humans struggle with short-term and long-term balancing. And you're right. Is it perfection on this one project, or is it perfection in the career or the outcome of the case? Those are different measurements. And then I've run into this stuff, and I don't remember, you and I have talked offline before, and I don't remember if I shared this with you, but a big eye opener for me was that there's different types of work. That in physical labor, if you're going to, build a brick wall, it's the number of bricks you put on the wall. Like the harder you work, the, longer or higher the wall gets. Yeah. But in law or other work in business, a lot of times it's intellectual work, and there's diminishing returns. You can't do, the harder you work at an intellectual task, the more you slow down and the more deliberate you get and the less creative you get. Yeah. And you kind of can only push so far. And then it just takes insane amount of work to get incremental improvement. Yeah. But there's also this third type of work, which is emotional work, where sometimes if you're trying to sell somebody, make somebody fall in love with you, build somebody's confidence or something, it's actually the opposite of hard work that would make that happen. So the harder you try to sell somebody, the less likely they are to buy. And you actually need to step back in order to get the perfect results that you want. And people kind of take that one towards that one solution. So I think like perfectionists that struggle with this is they have a hammer, and they're just going to use that, whether it's a nail, a screw, or a craft project. Like, I'm bringing this hammer to every situation, and it doesn't apply.
Absolutely. And also, in case my father ever listens to this, I have to say that I just mooed at myself when I interrupted you because of our conversation about the interrupting cow joke earlier. And so it's made it into this conversation. Oh my gosh. Yes. 100% on all of those things. And I think that the belief that more is always better is that is, again, another core thinking trap of perfectionism. And it's just not true for all the reasons that you said. And it's so interesting because in my coaching practice, I focus on perfectionists who need to get out of their own way. And it shows up differently for different people. But one of my biggest kind of core group of people that come to me are people who want to move from junior levels, like line agent jobs, where you're a worker bee, your job is execution, repeating what other people have done, billing more hours, rinse and repeat, more is better, to that higher level of creative work. And it's so interesting because if any lawyers come into this, somehow fall into this, listening to this Playful Humans podcast, I'm like, oh, we don't need creativity anyway. And it's like, actually, yeah, what do you think problem solving is? What literally, even if you are the most straight-laced lawyer, you need to be creative in order to be able to add value. And actually, anywhere that you are, if you want to be able to add value by doing literally anything besides from repeating what someone has already done, you need creativity for that. And in order to get there, you need more brain space. You need the positive energy flowing in, that the research in positive psychology shows that the positive emotions, feeling of joy, connection, love, those things actually change your brain chemistry in a way that facilitates more creative thinking. And similarly, like if you want to make a sale, whether it's, in some other industry, or if you want to connect with a client who's going to give you business, you need presence. And what do you need in order to have that presence and actual connection and build trust? You need to get out of your own head and actually take a step back and be there, as opposed to running a mile a minute, doing. And that is just lost on so many high achiever professionals.
Let's talk about the solutions to that. I think we've described the problem really well, but how did you find your play? What are you experimenting with to do that? And then what was that early process like when you realized you needed that release and to stop? Like, what was that like trying to
I did not find play on purpose initially. So I told you initially I found positive psychology. And so there I learned about the importance of connections and values alignment and things like that. And so that's what got me out of practicing law. That's what got me to make the switch towards, I moved into a job at a law school. I was doing law student counseling on well-being. Could it be more values aligned, right? And I was like, okay, my problems are solved. This is going to be better now. Within 6 months of that job, burned out hard again. And here, this is what I said at the beginning. I realized that I had changed all of these other things about my life, but I was still operating from this deep, ruthlessly critical perfectionist mindset, hustling to prove my worth. And so like you take the girl out of the toxic work environment, but if the toxic drill sergeant boss is still in her own head, she's not going to be doing anything differently. So there was where I found like, oh, I actually need to start reining in this inner criticism, this inner hustling to prove worth. And so there I started doing a lot of work on self-compassion, which is something that I had previously thought would turn me into a weak, lazy marshmallow. And I now recognize is actually the secret superpower of all high achievers. And so I started cultivating this self-compassion for myself, creating this psychological safety for myself, really working on not having my desperate fear of failure governing all of my decisions. And slowly, as I did this, I started becoming a little bit more braver in terms of just like listening to myself. And so, and I started having like little inklings of creative ideas, because when you're so scared of failure, all you want to do is just color inside the lines and like repeat exactly what someone else has done. So there's no space for creativity. And so I remember the way that my blog came to be was, at first I was just like, I would have a thought and I was like, I can never write this down. I can never put this out there because someone might reject it. And then like, I think I posted something on LinkedIn once and I put it out there and I'm like, oh, I put out these ideas that is not like scientific data. It's just my thoughts and reflections on things. And then all of a sudden people started reaching out to me. They're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing this. And also here's something about me. And then I was like, wait, if I, put my real self out there, the people who jive with my real self, like that's how you find them. That's how you connect with them. Fast forward a little bit. So I started kind of tinkering with that. Then early COVID, I was again struggling with burnout, as many people were. And it was actually my coach gave me an assignment, and it was to start reading again for pleasure, because I had not read, I think you'll hear this from a lot of lawyers, I had not read for pleasure in decades because reading was something for work. When I was a little kid, I would just walk around with novels all the time. And so I started reading again. And all of a sudden, I realized like, oh my goodness, I feel so good after I take time. So for me, I'm a nerd. That is total play for me, reading in like totally fun books, like psychological thriller, whodunit type things, nothing highbrow, even a little bit. And the change that had on me, once I started creating a little bit of space for just enjoyment that was just for me, because up until that point, anything I did that was play was really like checking the social box of, I was somehow facilitating my relationships by doing things with other people as opposed to doing something just for my pure intrinsic enjoyment. And what I now recognize is, especially now that my work is, I'm a coach and a teacher, it's all about this higher level thinking and connection and presence. When I take time to like nourish myself by doing things that actually make me light up and refuel me, I am so much better in everything else that I do.
I love that. And I want to hit two things that I think would be helpful for people that are digging into this topic today. When you and I spoke, I think my suggestion to you was you're playing a lot more than you think you are. You're writing, you're reading, you're doing cool things. You're just maybe not thinking that those are play, that those are refreshing. But I also have the opposite question, which is people with our personalities can easily take a game and be like, oh, I'm going to go pick up pickleball and turn it into like, now I'm got to be the world's best pickleball player and turn it into a job rather than play. So how have you balanced those two things together?
Oh my gosh, there's this, I have to send it to you afterwards. There's this, I don't know if it's like a meme, it's a comic, it's comic. And it's like a type A person sees someone and they're like, what are you doing? And the type B person, they're like, oh, sometimes you just need to stop and smell the flowers. And then the next one is you see the person's like, I'm this flower smelling champion. And it's like, yes, you can do things to death in that way. And I have, oh my God, I always need to rein myself in from doing things to death. And actually just a perfect example here. So how did I find my play? Oh, a great example of this is what I'm doing now professionally, the coaching. I was doing this for, I can't even tell you how many hours of unpaid coaching I did for fun because this is what I love doing before it even occurred to me that I could be doing this professionally. And so I used to think that work was something that had to hurt you and to hate it. And then it took me years to recognize not only should you aspire not to hate your job, you can actually aspire to do something that you love and get paid for it. That's a thing. And so, but for me, it's all about managing I'll say the inner critic, the inner perfectionist, the thing that is just so badly wants to feel worthy and will always jump in and be like, oh, if you just do this more, then you can prove your worth, then you can feel worthy. And so even with my work right now versus play, and so it's funny, for whatever reason, when I do other sorts of things like sports or those types of play, I don't get competitive about them. But I love my work so much, and my work can be play for me if I let it. And so what I'm constantly have to do is modulate that fear-based striving and hustling and ask myself, like, am I operating from a place of engagement and excitement and like values-based, like running towards something that'll make me feel good? Or am I running away from the feeling that I'm not doing enough right now? And constantly, and the thing is, you could be doing it could be the same exact activity, but which place am I coming at it from? And the thing is, it's so easy to slip into the playing. So I always say, taking a step back, I always say one thing about perfectionists is we're never playing to win. So running towards something because it feels great, that's playing to win. Perfectionists are playing not to lose. So we're running away from that feeling of not being good enough. And so you can be doing the exact same thing, but which of those mindsets are you doing it from? And so that's something I'm always trying to catch myself in. And the craziest part is that the work is always better when you're doing it from a mindset of playing to win than playing not to lose. And so not to mention it's more fun. And so like that is it, but it's a constant struggle and recalibration for me. And so one of these, I have these bracelets on my wrist that are my reminders of things. And one of them says, may you know. And so this was back in law school, my therapist created a loving kindness meditation for me that started with the words, may you know that you are worthy. And I really believe that like, that's the whole game. If I could just actually believe that I'm worthy, then everything I do will be playing to win or playing with purpose, not hustling to prove my worth or acting out of fear. And so I'm constantly trying to like pinpoint that.
Well, we're going to put you to the test here in a second if you want to play a game. But I just wanted to second that too. What I've found is it is easy to make play work and it's easy to make work play too. So I love to find ways to gamify stuff, whether I'm doing the dishes or trying to get the nieces and nephews to clean up, all the toys and things. Like, how can we turn this into a game, make it a race, make it fun, keep some points to it or something like that. Yeah. And with my own work too, it's like, am I approaching it with that mindset? I love that you said that and growing. Yeah. And then same thing when I'm trying to play, if I find myself being overly competitive or thinking that I have to do this podcast because I, blah, 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 it's Wednesday or whatever. It's no, I chose to do this. I want to do it. Yeah. And I'm so glad you're here and got to share that with us. Are you ready to play a game?
Oh, I'm so ready.
Here we go. All right. This is funny because now I feel like I'm putting you under pressure to get right answers and be perfect on this game. But if you get one of the top 5 answers in 2 out of 3, you win the game.
Okay.
So we surveyed 100 people and we asked them to name a sign that people disobey. What do you think they said?
A sign that people disobey. Stop signs.
Number one answer. There you go. 60 points for that one. Yield, do not enter, no littering, no smoking, and speed limit. Top sign people disobey. I like this one. Name a specific gift for others that people make themselves.
Scarves.
Gift you make yourself. I'll give you that to you. Yeah, the knitting Afghan quilt scarf at number 3. We also have food, the cup, painting, pottery, or photo albums.
Okay, I was going to say cookies. Yeah, so yeah, there we go.
Nice. All right, you've already won, so this one's for free.
I want to win more. This is the perfectionism episode. Let's go.
All right, I'm going to give you a hard one then. Name a foreign country whose name is 4 letters long.
4 letters long. Oh, man. Peru.
Peru is the number 3 answer. Again, congratulations on that one.
I was going to say Guam, but I don't think that's actually a country.
Cuba, Chad, and Fiji also made the top list. Congratulations, Jordana. You are officially one of life's winners. You win a free 30-second commercial for you and your coaching biz. You can go to JordanaConfino.com, click the links in the descriptions if you need to, and tell us, how can you help us or how can we help you?
Sure. So first of all, I already considered myself a winner for getting to spend this fun half hour with you, Mike. So thank you so much for having me. And yeah, if you are interested in my work, it's not just lawyers, it's high achieving perfectionists who need to get out of their own way so they can finally achieve satisfaction and sustainable success on their own terms. So check me out, JordanaConfino.com. You can also find my blog there, Chronicles of a Recovering Type A plus Perfectionist. I'm also on LinkedIn at Jordana Confino, and this has been so much fun. So thank you for having me.
You nailed it. Thank you so much for being on the show. Again, for more information on Playful Humans, you can go to playfulhumans.com. We have those playfulness quizzes. You can find other episodes. We do workshops, team building exercises, and Lego serious play to help your team break out of the serious mindset and get in a playful mindset for some good bonding and brainstorming, things like that. Until next time, if you can't be good at it. That's what I always say. We'll see you, everybody.